I'm Zachary Riffle, and I am a partner solution architect specializing in security here at Microsoft. In 30 minutes, I will be discussing the basics of Microsoft Sentinel, why it's a necessity for your security operations center or SOC and SecOps, its unique value, architecture, and more. There's a lot to cover, so let's dive in. It should be no surprise that the odds are against us. Data breaches are no longer a question of if, but when. And the numbers truly convey a sense of urgency. Over the last 12 months, we saw a significant increase in the number of password attacks from 1,200 per second to more than 4,000 per second. The speed of attacks is increasing too. It takes only 72 minutes for an attacker to access private data from the time a user falls victim to a phishing email. And data breaches from insider threats rose 44% last year alone. And the average time to contain and mitigate these types of incidents was an alarming 85 days. Moreover, customers are dealing with a persistent global talent shortage. Here in the United States, for every two cybersecurity jobs that are filled, a third remains open. Organizations today are also faced with the task of trying to protect their expanded digital estates and footprints. Our move to the cloud and our more mobile workforce in recent years pushed the border of digital estates to far beyond just a physical network. Your data and users and systems are everywhere. Meanwhile, as mentioned, the frequency and sophistication of attacks are growing. Regardless of your industry or the size of your organization, whether you're a small, medium, or large business, above all else, you're a target. So, the security operations or SecOps mission of protecting organizations and assets is becoming increasingly difficult. From SolarWinds to Log4j, security teams are exhausted. And our shortage of SecOps talent does not make this problem any easier. Attacks are growing in complexity. It could potentially start from an IoT device, proceed to an endpoint, spread to a cloud service, involve multiple users, or even worse, multiple tenants, and so on. We saw this concern spotlighted recently, which happens to be in the news right now, as Storm 0558, which is a China-based threat actor, targeted European and US government entities with the intent and target to obtain unauthorized access to email accounts. In the analysis, it was stated Storm 0558 operates with the highest degree of technical tradecraft and operational security. We're also seeing increasing alert fatigue. SOCs are seeing too many alerts from disconnected products, and we are seeing serious recent concerns with MFA fatigue. Enterprise SOCs typically have dozens of security products, each producing an unthinkable volume of alerts. Unfortunately, legacy SIEMs are functioning only as aggregators and don't actually increase your response capabilities. Not only that, investigation is complex and time consuming, and legacy on-prem SIEMs require hardware and extensive maintenance that can make them, quite frankly, expensive to operate. SOCs need a way to integrate their security products to reduce this noise, prioritize their most critical alerts, and enable investigation in hunting. Microsoft Sentinel meets these challenges with integrated threat protection. Sentinel is our own cloud-native SIEM, a security information and event management, and SOAR, security orchestration, automation, and response tool. It provides a bird's eye view across your enterprise. But it's not just Sentinel. Microsoft's SecOps strategy integrates the range of a SIEM with deep specialized tooling. Sentinel provides cloud native services to help you move beyond legacy SIEM infrastructure. Security orchestration, automation, and response, or SOAR, to help you automate your more repetitive tasks, and integrated machine learning and user and entity behavior analytics, or UEBA, to help you speed up your investigations. Our specialized tools provide high-quality alerts and help your end-to-end investigations and remediations. As you can see here, Defender for Endpoint, Azure AD Identity Protection for attacks on cloud identities, Defender for Identity for attacks such as Pass the Hash, Defender for Office 365, Defender for Cloud Apps, and Defender for Cloud. These resources represent the front door to your enterprise. And because of this, Microsoft has invested into a unified investigation experience and is continuing to invest in refining and expanding that experience with Sentinel. I do want to mention that this next generation of AI and automation, especially Security Copilot, will also supercharge your work. In June, Angelica and I explored some optimal preparations for Security Copilot, Azure OpenAI capabilities, and Angelica even demoed Sentinel and OpenAI integration within Azure. We highly recommend you watch the recording and go through our Security Copilot page. So you're an entry-level analyst, beginning your work in a security operations center and with Sentinel. The first step is to collect the data using data connectors. There are countless native data connectors and custom data connectors which can be deployed via Logic Apps. You can gather logs from just about any data source, and I really mean that, any data source, and I'll show that in just a moment. And Sentinel can also collect data from any Sentinel PaaS service that logs to Azure Monitor. Once your data sources are connected, you can visualize and monitor your data using workbooks. Workbooks are best thought of as interactive dashboards with graphs, maps, and other visualizations. And they're powered by KQL or Kusto Query Language queries, making them relatively easy to build and to customize. Watchlists collect data from external sources for correlation with events in your Sentinel environment. For example, importing user lists with privileged access or terminated employees, then using watchlists to create allow or deny, for detecting or preventing these users from logging into the network. Another example includes reducing alert fatigue, which I mentioned earlier. You can create watchlists to suppress alerts from a group of users, such as those from authorized IPs that perform routine tasks that trigger alerts. Sentinel's own threat intelligence allows you to add your indicators of compromise, or IOCs, to a Sentinel table. Individual indicators can be added or removed, and expired indicators are removed automatically. Microsoft's threat intelligence adds their own research, and you can subscribe to threat intelligence feeds provided by open source communities or other security providers. These feeds are usually set up using the Taxi or API-based connector. Sentinel provides out-of-the-box built-in templates to help you create threat detection rules. Analytics rules created from these templates will search your environment, and the alerts generated by these rules will automatically create incidents. There are more than 200 built-in alert rules, and a wizard lets you create your own analytics rules using KQL, Kusto Query Language queries. Thresholds can even be set with alerts, and alerts can also trigger playbooks, which I'll explain in just a moment. You can hunt with Sentinel's built-in hunting queries that are used to proactively identify unusual activity. You can launch Azure Notebooks directly from Sentinel too. Notebooks combine live code, graphics, visualizations, and text, and you can choose from a gallery of built-in notebooks developed by our security analysts or import others from GitHub. The incidents page provides a complete list of incidents in your environment. Incidents can be assigned to an analyst, the status can be tracked live, and they can also trigger automated playbooks. Automation rules help you triage these incidents, and automation rules can suppress noisy incidents, triage or escalate new incidents in your environment. They can call a playbook or more. Playbooks, which are based on our Azure Logic Apps, automate your responses to incidents. They are triggered by incidents and can be run automatically, or if you choose, you can run them manually. And you get to also choose from a library of samples or create your own custom playbooks. I want to emphasize that Defender for Cloud and Sentinel are different but complementary. Defender for Cloud is for protection and governance of Azure, including protecting hybrid workloads. Sentinel is for monitoring all environments from any source. To oversimplify, use Defender for Cloud for monitoring your hybrid workloads, and Sentinel more so for monitoring incidents, alerts, telemetry, and more. But do not forget that they work together, and Sentinel and Defender for Cloud are bidirectional. So you will see the same updates to incidents in both portals, Defender for Cloud and Sentinel. Microsoft Sentinel uses role-based access controls, or RBAC, to assign roles to users or groups. The Sentinel Reader can do exactly that. Read and view data, incidents, workbooks, and more. The Sentinel Responder can actually respond and manage incidents, whether assigning or dismissing an incident. The Sentinel Contributor can create and edit workbooks, analytics rules, and more. And that Sentinel Contributor role is arguably the largest role. And the Sentinel Playbook Operator can list, view, and manually run your playbooks. This is critical to note. It's recommended you assign these roles to the resource group that contains the Sentinel workspace. This way, the roles apply to all the resources that support Sentinel, assuming those resources are in the same resource group, which they should be. Another option is to assign the roles directly to the Sentinel workspace, but this is really not recommended. Let's talk data ingestion. So Sentinel is an enrichment layer built on log analytics workspace. There are few data sources that we haven't been able to connect to Sentinel, and as my colleague Angelica always mentions, it's not a matter of whether we can ingest the data. It's more a question of what's the best way to bring your data in. You will first ingest your native data connectors. Many of these data sources on the right may seem familiar to you as they're Microsoft's own data sources. It's worth mentioning that some of this data is always free. For example, Azure Activity Logs, including all SharePoint activity, Exchange admin activity, and Teams, Microsoft Teams. Security alerts are also free, including alerts from Defender for Cloud, Microsoft 365 Defender, Defender for Office 365, Defender for Identity, and Defender for Endpoint. There's also bi-directional sync and deep links to Defender 365, for example. So when your analyst is investigating an incident, they can take advantage of both portals, and if there are changes, it will actually appear in both. Sentinel really allows your analyst to correlate incident data with the Defender suite, other cloud providers, and even on-prem systems. So in essence, Sentinel brings it all together. So after your native data connectors and the Defender suite and more, you can configure diagnostic settings for Azure resources to send those logs directly to the Sentinel workspace. For instance, SQL servers, firewalls, VNets or virtual networks, NSGs or network security groups, app gateways, and so on. For Azure Virtual Machines or VMs, you can also use extensions to deploy agents as seen here within Azure. But please do keep in mind these VM extensions also work on non-Azure VMs via Azure Arc. Think AWS EC2s and on-prem servers, for example. Then we have our partner connectors. Clearly, there's a lot here, and they are available through the Sentinel portal too, but their internal connection is actually a little different. They use the REST API to send data to Sentinel and the Log Analytics workspace. Some of these partner connectors will have prerequisites. For example, the AWS connector requires roles with specific permissions. But good news is there's a script provided that will take care of that. But you still have to complete those steps prior to configuring the connector. Some of the connectors are Microsoft supported, partner supported, and some are even community supported. For data governance, it's critical to know which connector is supported and by whom. But do not worry, luckily this information is available in the data connector page too. Next, we connect on-prem infrastructure, and there are various options here. Most on-prem data sources connect via agent-based integration, but there are different types of agent-based connectors depending on the varying requirements. We have two main agents, MMA or Log Analytics Agent, which is our legacy agent, or AMA, Azure Monitor Agent, which is our new, more modern agent. I'll discuss the two main agents in more detail later in the slides. However, this is critical to know that for connectors using the Log Analytics Agent, or MMA, the agent will be retired on August 31st, 2024. If you are using the Log Analytics Agent in your Sentinel deployment, we recommend you start planning your migration to the Azure Monitor Agent, or AMA, essentially as soon as you can. So first option here, you can configure a log forwarder to ingest logs and then send them to your Sentinel workspace. Second, you can also use Logstash to connect data sources to Sentinel. Of course, this is convenient if you're already using Logstash. And finally, we do support syslog and ceplogs. So even though you may not see a specific connector listed for a particular source, it may be because other existing connectors already send that data. We can even ingest data from IoT and OT devices, even those that are air-gapped, using Microsoft Defender for IoT, which can discover and protect devices regardless of your physical or network location. So our final data source is custom applications. You can stream events to the Sentinel API using your favorite language. We provide some examples here using Python, PowerShell, and other popular languages, such as Java or TypeScript. You can also connect Azure functions with Azure Logic Apps. So clearly, here there is a seemingly endless source of options, and it's more a question of which log ingestion methods work best for your organization or SOC, for your requirements over what's available and what's not. Let's discuss agents. The Log Analytics Agent for Windows is referred to as MMA, and the Log Analytics Agent for Linux is referred to as the OMS Agent, Operations Management Suite. The syslog connector uses Log Analytics Agent, MMA for Windows, and OMS for Linux, as I just mentioned. However, the Log Analytics Agent will be retired on August 31st, 2024. So what's the replacement? The new shiny Azure Monitor Agent, or AMA, will replace three different agents, one of which being the Log Analytics Agent, as we consolidate and make it easier for partners and customers to onboard. It also adds some exciting new capabilities, such as granular controls with event filtering and multi-homing that are not available on existing agents. It can coexist with older agents. Just be aware of potential data duplication. And with the AMA agent, you can specify the exact information you want to bring in and where. For Sentinel connectors, the AMA agent is used by the Windows security events via AMA and Windows forwarded events. That's why you see the data collection rules, which is a great new feature with AMA that allows you to save money on costs associated with log ingestion, which we know can easily add up at times. So now you can store more noisy data in potentially a different workspace, as you will ultimately have a higher level of control. So now I will begin our demo.
So at its core, Sentinel is a SaaS-based solution. So the administrative burden, much of it is handled for you. In legacy SIEMs, you would need to configure infrastructure in an expensive and time-consuming process. So as you can see here, and as a helpful reminder, Sentinel is built on Log Analytics Workspace. So click on it here. Sentinel is essentially the enrichment layer on top of your workspace, allowing you to analyze and interact with your telemetry. I'm actually going to jump workspaces here and show you a new feature first. This is Workspace Manager. So Sentinel supports multi-tenancy, and our new Workspace Manager allows you to centrally manage multiple workspaces in a single pane. Whether you're a global enterprise or a managed security service provider, MSSP, Workspace Manager helps you operate at scale efficiently. As a prerequisite, you'll need at least 2 Sentinel workspaces, one workspace to manage from, and at least one other workspace to be managed. The Sentinel contributor role is also required on the central workspace, such as you see here, where Workspace Manager is enabled. Azure Lighthouse, which David covered, also supports multi-tenancy. So let's hop back over here. So once Sentinel is turned on, the first step is to bring in data using our data connectors. You can bring in data, as you see right here, using Content Hub, which brings in more of a broad capability set for our partners. So once I'm ready to bring data in, what does that look like? Well, as I showed you, we support a wide variety of data sources, beginning with the Microsoft Security Suite. In other terms, our more native data connectors. So you might see here Azure Activity and Azure Firewall, AAD. At some point, I'll start calling all of that Entra. But if we scroll down here, you will see more of our Defender Suite. And you can bring in this Defender Suite for additional signal correlation. As you see the green mark here on the left, some of these Defender Suites, such as Defender for Identity and Endpoint, mean it is connected. And at the top, you also see you have 42 onboarded connectors. So I'm not going to show you this, but it's critical to know that when you configure a data connector, it also brings in workbooks, analytic rules, and more. The queries and detection rules are actually pre-built, which are what trigger incidents. So instead of manually building the queries, you gain the advantage of having the KQL, Kusto Query Language, detections built for you. And it's worth noting, if you want to, the queries are also customizable. For the sake of time, I'll continue moving forward. So now that we've brought in the data, we'll want to analyze it. And there are countless analytics rules created. So here you can see all of your active rules. You have 10 active rules. You can see your rule templates right here. As you can see, there are plenty of built-in analytics rules for you to choose from. And you can see anomalies, which are from UEBA. And I'll show this again later in the demo. So if we go back to our active rules, you can see that they're organized by several key columns, one of which is severity, informational, low, medium, and high. You have the name of the analytics rules. You have your rule type, your status, tactics, techniques, the source name, the date last modified, and more. So if I go here, so our secret sauce are rule types such as ML behavior analytics, Microsoft security, Infusion. And these rules use machine learning to analyze a user or entity's behavior, correlate with the Microsoft Security Suite, and create alerts from low fidelity signals into more actionable signals. You can even edit an analytics rule if you would like to. So if you go into edit here, let's see. So you can edit this in the analytics wizard, as we see here, and you can even edit the rule logic. One last thing I forgot to cover is you can create an analytics rules right here. You can create a scheduled query rule, an NRT query rule, and a Microsoft incident creation rule. And you also have analytics workbooks. There are 2 listed here: analytics efficiency and health and audit preview. And I'll touch on workbooks in just a couple minutes. All right, so once data is connected and analytics rules are running, Sentinel will start producing incidents. So this is our incidents blade and our incidents homepage. So here you can see your 18 open incidents, 16 new incidents, and 2 active incidents. And it's also organized by time. Here I set 7 days, but you could do a week, a month, and out of curiosity, you could also do the last 24 hours. So, and again, it's organized by severity. So you can see here, you have 4 high alert incidents, 4 medium, and then 0 low and 0 information. So let's analyze an incident. I'll click on this first one here. Pretend you're a junior analyst. Just look at all of this information that's at your disposal, and let's break it down. So before you even open the incident details, here at the bottom, you can see evidence, such as alerts correlated to that incident. We have 21 alerts here. You get your last updated time and the creation time of the incident. You have all of your entities involved. I'm not going to open this. There's 66, and it might crash the computer. You have tactics and techniques. You have a workbook and tags, which are relatively easy for an analyst to add. So this is everything you get in what I like to call the incident preview screen. But let's open it up for further details. So I'm going to start at the top here. So if you want to see the activities running against an incident, you can actually open the activity log here. Such activities, for example, could include a playbook run. And here is just, you can analyze the log information for that associated incident. You can also now create tasks in incidents too. So if I'm an analyst, I can go in here, create a task, add a title, description, and then hand it over to my fellow analysts. Let's go back to this overall page and begin with the incident timeline. So here's your timeline. And if you wanted to, you can even go back to when the incident started. So we see here, 3 days ago, there was a possible lateral movement. And the best part about this, not in this one, maybe in this one, is that you can see the remediation steps in the timeline itself right here. So this just really helps give you a bigger picture. You also have all of your entities involved listed here. You have top insights such as IP address remote connections, Windows sign-in activity, and more. You have similar correlated incidents at the bottom there. And if you go over here to the left, you see more of our preview screen. And again, you see the incident severity, which is high. You see its status, which you can change, new, active, and close. And you see whether it's assigned or not. And I could even assign it to myself if I wanted to right here and now. Well, let's say you're an analyst and this is time critical and you want to immediately remediate this incident. You can actually do so. So if I go here to incident actions, I can hit run playbook, create an automation rule, or even create a team to help respond to that incident. And if you're not satisfied with all of the information that you see here, you can actually investigate further. So if I hit investigate here, hopefully this won't break my computer. And if you're a visual learner like myself, the investigation capability is truly powerful. So here, I won't go too into detail, but you gain just an entity map with entity details. I can click on one. Here I see more lateral movements. I see tactics, a description, severity, vendor name, and more details. So again, this really just helps a junior analyst or any analyst, visualize how the incidents, alerts, or actions are correlated. Let's pop back out here now. and we'll go to workbooks. So workbooks help you visualize the data collected. And again, they come packaged with data connectors, and you can also find more in our content hub. So I'm going to pick on one of my favorites here as an example, which is Azure Activity. We'll open this up. So here is a workbook. So again, it's all about visualization. So here you see your top 10 active resource groups at the top. You can see your activities over time down here. You can see user activities and more. You can even edit the workbook if you would like to. So if I go to edit here and I go over here to the right, I can add, move, clone, or remove these visualizations. And you can even share a workbook. If I go here, I can share this. It says Azure Sentinel report. Clearly, we're still updating some naming. I can pin it, pin a default workbook, or I can provide feedback, which of course we highly encourage you to do so. I'll go to one more of my favorite workbooks before moving on. And that is the meter attack workbook. So this helps you visualize what is covered in your meter techniques. You can analyze your data source statistics, including your meter coverage. As you see here, detections coverage for Sentinel data sources. You can analyze your coverage with the Microsoft Sentinel GitHub. And you can also analyze the meter heat map for additional details and visualizations, as you see here. Meter attack navigator heat map for Azure AD, O365, AWS. So I won't go through all of these, but hopefully this gives you a bit better picture of what workbooks are all about. And again, these workbooks are best thought of as your reporting dashboards. So now I'll go to the overview page. So again, it's worth noting that incidents are actually alerts grouped together into one. So here you see your incidents. This is from the last 24 hours. You see 7 new, 1 active, and 52 closed. So clearly the team's been hard at work. And again, they're organized by severity. You can see your closed incidents by classification. On this overview page, you also get your automation rules, analytics rules, and your data connectors. But my absolute favorite part of this overview page is right here, your mean time to acknowledge an incident and your mean time to close an incident. In this environment, it says our mean time to close is 0 minutes, which might not be quite possible, but I hope that gives you a better idea. And if I open this up, this will really help your SecOps visualize and be as efficient and effective as possible. This might not load, and for the sake of my computer, I'll actually hop back. So I'm going to show you one more thing before I hand it off to Angelica, User and Entity Behavior Analytics, or UEBA. So this is the overview page, and this actually used to be 3 accounts: accounts by number of alerts, hosts by number of alerts, and IPs by number of alerts. But there's 2 new categories, IoT devices by number of alerts and Azure resources by number of alerts. You can adjust the time similar to what I showed you with incidents right up here at the top, from 24 hours to a week to a month, or even a custom range. And once visiting for the first time, you will see the entity behavior settings and configurations page, such as this, what I pulled up. Turning on UEBA is really as easy as a click of a button. We want to make it as easy for you. And that's just this, turning this button from off to on, and then selecting your data ingestion accounts right here. So let's do some analysis. I will pick on, let's do Pedro Gustavo. So in here, you will gain a timeline of alerts, events, or anomalies. And these anomalies are useful for investigating an entity as well as for investigating incidents. Common anomalies could include suspicious volumes of logins to a user account, or even in more advanced stages of attack, anomalous data destruction. And again, these could be seen in the same time frame as other alerts and activities, really allowing your analysts to connect the dots, identify malicious activity, and then take action. For your entity timeline, you can now run a playbook directly on on an entity and an alert, as you see here. I'm not going to do this, but Angelica will show you more later. Exit out that. And our machine learning is utilized under insights. As you can see here, we have user peers based on security groups. You have actions by account. This would include adding or removing an MFA or deleting files, high sign-ins, and more. So clearly, Pedro doesn't have a lot of information. But the good news is that this is not only for accounts, it's also for entities. So we'll hit on a host. Sorry, excuse me, not entities, but hosts. So here you just gain more alerts, anomalies, and insights. For example, we have an ongoing hands-on keyboard attack via a toolkit. Insights here include Windows signing activity, process, execution information, and more. You can actually customize the entity page too. If I go here to and customize entity page, here you can add activities. If I hit add, if you want to, you can add a name, description, entity type, such as an account or a host, and parameters. And the last thing I'll show is that anomalies are actually added to analytics rules too, as you saw here earlier in a quick preview. And this is just another area to see UEBA in action.